When people talk about fast bikes, most folks picture modern rockets with electronic limiters and fancy rider aids. But the truth is, the 1990s were the wild west of speed. This was the decade when motorcycle engineers went absolutely inane, building machines that chased one thing, being the fastest on Earth. No traction control, no soft edges, just raw horsepower stuffed into steel and aluminum. From Kawasaki's ZX-11 to Suzuki's infamous Hayabusa, these bikes didn't just push limits, they destroyed them. Today, we're counting down the top 17 fastest motorcycles of the 1990s. Revving into number 17, Kawasaki Ninja ZX 7R, 1996. When Kawasaki rolled out the Ninja ZX 7R, they weren't just selling a motorcycle, they were selling a race replica dream. This was the machine that carried the DNA of Kawasaki's World Superbike Championship glory right into the hands of everyday riders. With its sharp twin headlights, aggressive fairings, and featherbed-like handling, the ZX-7R screamed pure speed even before you thumbed the starter. Underneath that green armor sat a liquid-cooled, inline, 4-engine pumping out close to 112 horsepower. That meant real-world top speeds of 160-plus miles per hour. And keep in mind, this was at a time when many so-called fast cars barely broke 120. Today, the ZX-7R has become a cult classic. Clean examples fetch between $5,000 and $8,000, depending on condition and mileage. But mint editions can push higher because collectors know this was the bike that inspired a whole generation of track riders. If you wanted a motorcycle that made you feel like Scott Russell or Akira Yanagawa on the street, this was it. And yet, Kawasaki had a rival lurking just around the corner, a Suzuki that didn't get the same love, but secretly packed serious speed. Cruising in at number 16, Suzuki RF 900R 1994. This Suzuki bike is one of the most underrated speed demons of the 90s. Overshadowed by the flashy GSX-Rs and Kawasaki's, the RF was often dismissed as a sport tourer. But if you've ever twisted the throttle, you know this bike was hiding a dark secret. It was fast. Powered by a liquid-cooled inline-4, borrowed and tuned from the GSX-R 1100, the RF 900R pumped out around 112 horsepower and could scream past 165 miles per hour. And today, these bikes are still affordable. You can pick up a solid used RF and 900R for between $3,000 and $5,000. That's less than the price of a new scooter for a machine that can still embarrass plenty of modern bikes in a straight line. But if the RF was a sleeper, the next bike on this list wasn't hiding anything. It was an outright statement of speed and power. Kicking up dust at number 15, Yamaha YZF-R1 1998. When the Yamaha YZF-R1 landed in 1998, it didn't just enter the market, it rewrote the rules. Riders had seen fast bikes before, but nothing like this. Yamaha managed to pick a 1000cc inline-4 into a chassis that was lighter and more compact than many 600cc machines of the time. This was the first true litter bike that felt like a track weapon you could ride on the street. The R1 made 150 horsepower, and with its aggressive gearing, it could smash 0 to 60 in just under 3 seconds and top out around 175 miles per hour. Numbers like that in the 90s were earth-shaking. What's shocking today is the value. A clean late 90s R1 will set you back between $5,000 and $8,000 depending on mileage and condition. That is a fraction of what modern superbikes cost. Yet this machine still feels terrifyingly fast to most riders. It doesn't coddle you with electronics. It doesn't slow down the madness. It gives you raw speed, the way superbikes were meant to be. But the R1 didn't just change Yamaha's lineup. It forced every other manufacturer to step up. Kawasaki, Honda, Suzuki, they all scrambled to catch up. And one German brand decided to do something completely different. Commanding attention at number 14, BMW K1200 RS 1997. If Japan was busy chasing razor-sharp sport bikes, BMW quietly went another way with the K1200 IRS. This machine arrived in 1997 and stunned riders with a blend of speed, luxury, and engineering precision that only the Germans could deliver. It wasn't a race replica, but it could still run with the big dogs. Powered by a 1,173cc inline-4, the KRS produced around 130 horsepower and pushed to a top speed near 155 miles per hour. It wasn't the most aggressive, but it was unstoppable on the Autobahn. The long wheelbase, tele-lever front suspension, and shaft drive made it stable at high speeds while remaining smooth in a way no Japanese sport bike could match. Today, prices for clean examples hover around $4,000 to $6,000. That is insane value for a high-speed tourer with legendary reliability. The paint, the bodywork, and the engineering all feel overbuilt, as if BMW wanted these machines to outlast decades. We're just getting started. There are still more dangerous bikes ahead. Are you ready? If you are or not, help like this video and subscribe to our channel. You'll be glad you did. So while the KRS was refined, the late 90s also birthed a Japanese rocket that had absolutely zero interest in refinement. It was built to be brutal, and it became a cult legend. Owning the road at number 13, Suzuki TL1000R 1998. The Suzuki TL1000R was Suzuki's bold answer to the booming era of V-twin superbikes. In the late 90s, Ducati was ruling the tracks with their Desmo twin monsters, and Suzuki wanted in. Enter the TL1000R, a bike that brought a 1000cc V-twin with well over 130 horsepower and a raw, untamed personality that was as thrilling as it was intimidating. This was not a bike for the timid. The TL earned a reputation for its aggressive power delivery and its infamous rotary rear damper, which made handling unpredictable at the limit. Riders either loved it for the wild character or feared it for the same reason. But when kept under control, the TLR was blisteringly fast, with real-world top speeds brushing 170 miles per hour. Today, prices hover around $5,000 to $7,000 for clean examples, making it one of the most affordable ways to own a piece of 90s superbike history. For riders who want something different, something with a beating V-twin heart and raw edge, the Japanese bikes usually smoothed out. The TL delivers in spades. And while the TL never toppled Ducati on the racetrack, it gave riders a true taste of V-twin dominance with Japanese reliability. It stood as proof that Suzuki wasn't afraid to take risks. And speaking of icons that did topple giants, our next machine is one of the most celebrated race-bred bikes of all time. Breaking through at number 12, Honda VFR 750 R RC 301990. This was no ordinary sport bike. This was Honda building a bike for victory, a hand-built race homologation weapon that took engineering precision to new levels. At its core was a 750cc V4 engine, pumping out just under 115 horsepower, but numbers alone never told the story. The RC30 was light, nimble, and designed with the soul of endurance racing. Its featherweight frame and race-bred suspension meant it could dance through corners while still storming down straights at 160 miles per hour. The RC30 destroyed the competition in the World Superbike Championship, winning the very first two titles in the late 80s and then continuing to dominate into the 90s. Riders worshipped it, collectors hoard it, and today its value reflects its legendary status. Finding one now is no easy feat, but when you do, expect prices anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. This was Honda at its peak, flexing engineering muscle and proving that a production bike could deliver true race performance. Even modern sport bikes owe a nod to the RC30 because it set the bar for what a homologation special should be. And while the RC30 embodied precision and control, the next machine we cover embraced something far wilder, an unleashed beast that defined pure speed in the 90s. Hitting top gear at number 11, Kawasaki ZR 600, 1992. The Kawasaki ZR 600 was the kind of motorcycle that didn't scream for attention. Park it next to a Ninja or the Ducati and it looked tame, almost conservative. But the truth is, this bike was a missile in disguise. With a 4-cylinder engine pumping out nearly 100 horsepower, the ZR 600 could easily climb past 150 miles per hour. For a machine that looked like a comfortable commuter, that was shocking performance. This was Kawasaki's sneaky move in the 90s. Build a bike that could do touring, daily riding, and then, when asked, absolutely destroy the highway. Riders loved how smooth it was, how reliable it was, and how it stayed cool even when pushed. It became a favorite for those who wanted speed but didn't want to look like a boy racer. Back then, the ZR 600 earned a reputation for being a do-everything machine. And today, you can still find them for ridiculously cheap, often under $3,000 for a clean example. That makes it one of the best sleeper bargains in the 90s sport bike market. If you want a motorcycle that feels like two bikes in one, this is it. But what happened when Ducati decided speed wasn't enough and they wanted to build something that looked like art? Accelerating into number 10, Ducati 916, 1994. If there's one motorcycle that defines the 90s, it's the Ducati 916. When Massimo Tamburini designed this masterpiece, the world of motorcycles changed forever. The 916 wasn't just a superbike. It was a poster bike, a dream machine, a moving sculpture, sleek underseat exhausts, razor-sharp fairings, and that unmistakable Italian aggression made it an instant icon. But the beauty wasn't just skin deep. The Ducati 916 was powered by a Desmo Quattro V-twin, making over 110 horsepower. It was lighter than most of its rivals and handled like it was glued to the tarmac. With a top speed brushing 160 miles per hour, the 916 didn't just keep up, it dominated on the track. It won world championships and cemented Ducati as a serious performance brand, not just a boutique Italian name. Today, the 916 is a collector's dream. Prices vary wildly. A rough one might still show up around $8,000 to $10,000, but mint condition examples can easily reach $40,000 or more. This is not just a motorcycle anymore. It's an investment, a piece of motorcycle history that still makes people stop and stare. And while Ducati was rewriting the rulebook on style and performance, another company in the 90s was quietly building a V-twin beast that didn't care about elegance, only brute force. Carving through the ranks at number 9, Yamaha FZR 1000, 1995. The Yamaha FZR 1000 was not just another fast bike of the era, it was a litter bike revolution. Known as the Genesis, this machine introduced the world to a radical frame design and performance levels that blew away expectations in the late 80s and continued dominating into the 90s. Underneath sat a liquid-cooled, 4-cylinder engine pumping out over 140 horsepower, propelling the bike to top speeds close to 175 miles per hour. That was insane for the time, especially when many bikes still struggled past 130. The FZR felt like stepping into the future. Today, collectors and enthusiasts still hunt these down. Clean examples can be found from around $4,000 to $8,000, depending on condition, making it one of the more accessible legends of the decade. And when you ride it, you feel exactly why it was nicknamed Genesis. It marked the beginning of the modern superbike era. But while the FZR 1000 rewrote the rules for street performance, Honda was preparing something more exotic, more race-bred, and far more elite. Blasting forward into number 8, Honda RC45, RVF 700, 50/19/94. If the Yamaha FZR 1000 was about accessible speed, the Honda RC45 was about pure racing DNA wrapped in street clothes. This was not just a motorcycle, it was Honda flexing its engineering dominance in the 90s. A true V4 masterpiece, the RC45 was designed directly from Honda's World Superbike program, built to compete with the best in the world, and it showed in every detail. The liquid-cooled V4 engine cranked out just under 120 horsepower, but the magic wasn't the raw number, it was the delivery. Linear, explosive, and razor-sharp, the RC45 could scream to over 14,000 RPM and still feel like it wanted more. Top speed? Around 165 miles per hour. But speed was only half the story. With its titanium components, twin-spar aluminum frame, and Showa suspension, this was a bike built for track warfare. And it was pricey. In the 90s, the RC45 cost nearly $27,000, about double the price of most other superbikes. Today, collectors treat it like holy grail hardware. Auction values can reach $40,000 to $60,000 for pristine models, making it one of the most coveted bikes of the era. But here's the thing. While Honda was building an elite V4 weapon, another Italian brand was quietly crafting the most beautiful and iconic superbike of the decade. Grinding into number 7, Kawasaki Ninja ZX9R 1994. In the mid-90s, when the world was obsessed with outright top speed, Kawasaki dropped the Ninja ZX9R, a machine that proved you could have both power and precision. With its liquid-cooled DOHC 4-cylinder engine producing well over 120 horsepower, the ZX9R was capable of pushing past 170 miles per hour. Today, this bike is a bit of a forgotten legend. Clean examples of the ZX9R can be found for around $4,000 to $5,000 on the used market, making it one of the cheapest ways to own a true 90s superbike experience. If you wanted a bike that could take you to the racetrack on Saturday, blast through back roads on Sunday, and still leave you grinning on Monday, the ZX9R delivered. It wasn't just about speed, It was about balance. That balance would go on to shape the superbike wars into the 2000s. But wait until you see what the Italians had brewing in Bologna. Hammering down at number 6, Ducati 996, 1999. Few bikes capture the essence of the 90s quite like the Ducati 996. Born from the legendary Ducati 916, this machine carried the torch of Italian dominance into the late 90s and early 2000s. The design was pure art, under-seat exhausts, sharp lines, and that signature red bodywork that looked as good parked outside a cafe as it did screaming down a racetrack. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a beauty queen. Underneath, the 996cc liquid-cooled Desmodromic V-twin pumped out over 120 horsepower, and it could reach speeds north of 165 miles per hour. It was a bike for racers, and it showed on the track. The Ducati 996 powered the factory race team to multiple world superbike victories, cementing its legacy as one of the most important bikes of its era. Prices for well-kept examples can range anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000, depending on condition and history. It's one of those bikes that will only climb in value as the years pass. And when you ride one, you understand why. The sound of the dry clutch, the feel of that booming twin, the way it demands you ride like a racer. The 996 was the perfect finale to the decade, and it set the stage for Ducati's next masterpiece, a machine that pushed brute force to another level entirely. Leading hard into number 5, Suzuki GSX-R 1100, 1998. If the GSX R750 was the lean athlete, then the Suzuki GSX-R 1100 was the muscle-bound brawler. This was Suzuki's heavyweight champion, a motorcycle built on raw power, speed, and presence. Introduced in the late 80s and refined through the 90s, the GSX-R 1100 came with a massive 4-cylinder engine, producing upwards of 140 horsepower, enough to blast past 170 miles per hour with terrifying ease. This was not a beginner's machine. The GSX-R 1100 was big, heavy, and fast. At nearly 550 pounds, it wasn't as nimble as the smaller sport bikes. But once you opened the throttle, nothing could keep up. Riders of the era loved it because it felt like you were riding pure speed wrapped in a steel and aluminum frame. And it had an intimidation factor, both in looks and in sound, that made it stand out from everything else on the road. On today's market, the GSX-R 1100N has become somewhat of a cult classic. You can still find them in the $4,000 to $6,000 range, but pristine, low-mileage examples are climbing fast, as collectors begin to realize just how important this bike was. It was the end of an era, the last of the truly massive, unapologetic superbikes, before everything became about weight reduction and electronics. But here's the best part. Riding a GSX-R 1100N today still feels like you're holding onto a cannonball with handlebars. And as we climb higher on the list, the superbikes don't get any calmer. In fact, they get even more dangerous. Unstoppable at number 4, a Honda CBR 1100 XX Super Blackbird 1996. When Honda dropped the Super Blackbird in the mid-90s, it was not just another superbike, it was a declaration of war. Kawasaki had just unleashed the ZX-E11, and the crown for the world's fastest production motorcycle was firmly in Team Green's grip. Honda engineers took that as a personal challenge. The result was the CBR 1100 Technique, a motorcycle that combined sheer speed, unmatched refinement, and long-distance composure like nothing else before it. Powered by an inline-4 beast pumping out 164 horsepower, the Super Blackbird hit a top speed of 180 miles per hour, cementing itself as the world's fastest motorcycle in 1996. That number may sound tame today, but back then, cars were barely breaking 120 miles per hour, and even most motorcycles lived in the 150 range. The Blackbird was a missile disguised as a gentleman's express. What made it special was not just speed. Unlike some superbikes that sacrifice comfort for lap times, the Blackbird was smooth, stable, and shockingly easy to ride. You could tour for hundreds of miles, hit triple-digit speeds, and still arrive without feeling beaten up. Riders adored the mix of refinement and brutality, something few machines balance so well. Today, clean examples can be found for as little as $5,000 to $7,000, a bargain for a motorcycle that once rewrote history. And while Kawasaki and later Suzuki would continue the top speed wars, and the Blackbird remains a legend for being the bike that forced the entire industry to evolve. And are you ready to evolve to a whole level of superbikes? Because the top 3 on this list are absolute speed demons. Fasten your seatbelts, like this video, subscribe, and let's get into it. This evolution takes us to another Yamaha, a machine that bridged 2 worlds, 1 foot in the past, 1 eye firmly on the future. Tearing through at number 3, Yamaha YZF 1000R Thunder Race, 1996. Before the YZF or One changed the world, there was the Thunder Race, and Yamaha's last big superbike of the 90s and a true bridge machine that connected the old-school brute force era to the razor-sharp modern sport bike generation. Introduced in 1996, the Thunder Race was powered by a carbureted inline-4 engine, making around 145 horsepower. That was enough to push it beyond 170 miles per hour, giving it serious credentials in the top speed race of the decade. On the used market, you can find Thunder Races for as little as $3,000 to $5,000, making it one of the best hidden gems of the 90s superbike world. It is often overshadowed by the legendary R1 that followed, but true enthusiasts know the Thunder Race deserves respect for being the final chapter of Yamaha's Priya R1. And speaking of legends that changed everything, wait until we talk about the Italian masterpiece that took the superbike world by storm with both beauty and speed. That is our number 1. Laying rubber at number 2, Kawasaki Ninja ZX11, 1990. In the early 90s, there was one bike that everyone whispered about. The Kawasaki Ninja ZX11 was not just a motorcycle, it was the Speed King. Introduced in 1990, this beast held the crown as the fastest production bike in the world for nearly the entire decade. Imagine a motorcycle capable of hitting 175 miles per hour when most riders were still struggling to break 150. The ZX11 wasn't just quick off the line, it had relentless top-end speed that could embarrass almost any rival. Underneath, you had a 1,105cc inline-4, pumping out around 150-55 horsepower, delivered in a smooth but ferocious wave. Kawasaki gave it ram air induction, something radical for the time, making the bike breathe harder the faster you went. And that's what made the ZX11 feel like it had endless pull, a bike that just would not stop accelerating. Today, you can still find ZX11s for around $3,000 to $5,000 on the used market. That's insane value for a bike that once ruled the world. And yet, Kawasaki knew the crown would not last forever because a new legend was coming. A bike that would completely change the game at the peak of the pack. Number 1. Suzuki Hayabusa GSX 1300 R 1999. 1999. A year that changed motorcycling forever. That's when Suzuki unleashed the Hayabusa GSX 1300R, the motorcycle that didn't just break records, it shattered them. The name Hayabusa literally means peregrine falcon, a bird known for diving at over 200 miles per hour. And Suzuki delivered exactly that. The first production motorcycle to hit 200 miles per hour right out of the box. The secret was its massive 1,299cc inline-4, making around 175 horsepower. Unlike other high-strung superbikes, the Hayabusa wasn't just about peak power. It delivered torque everywhere, making it a monster in real-world riding. Whether you rolled the throttle at 4,000 RPM or 10,000, the bike surged forward with earth-shaking force. Even today, the Hayabusa is a legend. First-gen models from 1999 still sell strong, often going for $6,000 to $8,000, depending on condition. That's because they're not just motorcycles, they're history. The Hayabusa was more than a bike. It was the bike that redefined what speed meant, and its legend still flies higher than almost anything else. And there you have it, the 17 fastest motorcycles of the 90s, a decade when speed wasn't just a number, it was an obsession. These machines weren't built to sit still, they were built to shatter limits, dominate highways, and etch their names into motorcycle history. If you felt the rush just listening to them, imagine riding one. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more adrenaline-fueled rides, and drop a comment with your favorite 90s rocket. And don't stop now. Check out our next video. I'll catch you there.